This is Transqat. What is Transqat? Transqat is a safe space. It's a place for respectful conversations about transgender issues. It's a place for queer people to come tell their stories. I'm host Clare McCarthy. Welcome to Transqat. Hey everybody, I've got a bit of a head cold and I'm sure you can hear it over the mic. Sorry about that. Hopefully I'll get over it soon. Today, I am joined by members of the Shoreline Roller Derby League. Their team is the Kraken Skulls. Now, Slice, whom you'll hear at the beginning of the podcast, and Carnage, who's the last segment, host a podcast called Coming Hot into the Box with Slice and Carnage, a roller derby podcast. You can find it everywhere. And they graciously invited me onto the show about a month ago. I encourage you all to give it a listen. It was a blast. The episode is called Cat in the Box. I then went to see them compete in their last bout of the season in Groton, Connecticut. And then last week, I attended a practice where I tried defying gravity on roller skates. Over the course of their practice, 6 of the team members skated over to chat with me about derby life in general and its intersection with queer life. Turns out, I enjoy derby even when Elliot Page and Kristen Wiig aren't involved.
Hello.
Hey, Slice.
Hey, Claire.
So you just led me around the track several times.
I did.
In my first derby practice, sort
Yes,
of.
you did great.
Yeah. Tell me about the fall. That was okay?
You did great. You picked a cheek.
Yeah, I did. I went with the left cheek.
You
I
went
hope
with the
that's
left cheek.
okay.
That's
yeah.
totally fine.
Now, when I was on your podcast, you were saying that you guys pride yourselves on if you take a fall, there better be a bruise.
I think you might have a bruise.
You think so?
Yeah.
Was it good enough to be bruised?
I don't know. You went down pretty hard.
Okay.
At least you didn't hit your head. It was just your butt.
It's nothing I'm using.
You know, it's like padding.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Exactly. It's perfect
If I had
for
a
it.
nickel for every time I fell on my butt.
So we were talking while we were skating that after you guys gave me my tutorial, I came to your last bout.
You did. I was so excited to see you.
Oh, it was so much fun, and your teaching worked.
Hooray.
On a very basic level, I was able to understand what was going on. Quiz me. Ask me some questions to see if I remember.
Who is the ball?
Who is the ball?
Who is the ball?
Is this a metaphorical question?
Yeah. Like, we don't have balls, but who would be the ball?
Gotcha. Okay. In that case, the jammer.
The jammer is
The
the ball.
jammer's
Very
the ball.
good.
There are 2 jammers.
There are 2 jammers.
They each have a star on their helmet.
They do.
Okay. And
Anything else?
all right. A jammer's job is to get through the pack.
Correct.
Go all the way around back to the start line.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be back to the start line. They just have to get back to the pack.
Okay.
They just go around the pack.
Fortunately, we've timed this for the vacuuming of the rink. So
once every 10 years, whether it needs it or not.
Okay, so the jammer breaks through the pack.
Yep.
And then doesn't have to get all the way around?
They go all the way around until they meet up with the pack again.
Wherever the pack
And then when they
happens to
meet
be.
up with the pack again, that's when they can score points. And they score points for every hip that they pass.
Every opponent's hit.
Every opponent's hip
Right.
that they pass.
Okay.
Legally in bounds while still standing.
So whichever jammer does that first gets named lead jammer.
Whichever gets out of the pack gets
Okay.
lead jammer.
What is the responsibility of the other team's jammer? Do they just become another blocker, or?
So once the other jammer realizes that they don't have lead jammer status, if they're still stuck in the pack, they can pass the helmet cover to the pivot, and that's the one that has a stripe on the head.
Okay.
If the pivot is in a better position, the goal is to get out of the pack, is to get either the pivot or the jammer out of the pack. Usually you want to be like right on the tail of the other jammer, because if you're right on their tail, they're going to call off the jam and they're not going to try to score any points. Because if you score points at the same time the other jammer scores points,
Okay, so that was kind of what I was getting at.
Right,
Not to
it's
cut
a
you off
wash.
mid-sentence, but
Right.
but so the jammer who is not lead jammer can still be scoring points.
You can still score points, yep.
Oh, okay. That's what I wasn't...
You just lose the ability to call off, like to end the jam. If the lead jammer gets a penalty, that's it. It has to be a full 2 minutes. Because once the lead jammer is given, that's it.
That's it.
You
That's
can't
for that
take it away and give it back somewhere else.
for that jam.
For that
and the
jam.
jams are 2 minutes long.
2 minutes long.
Okay, great.
You got it.
Okay, see, I got the
You did
basics.
good.
Thank you. One of the things that again we were talking about as I was almost falling.
Almost falling.
All the way around.
Not really.
Several
I've
times.
seen way worse.
Oh, thank you. Was that the communication that goes on among the blockers? So
Yeah.
there are the 2 jammers. There are 4 other people on their team.
I give a lot of props to the other people in my team who are but you have to, because it is very much a team sport. If
Yeah.
you're not all working together, you're not being effective whatsoever.
Right. But that's one of the things that I saw in a couple of articles is that one talented skater is pretty useless on a derby team.
Absolutely. And I just kind of learned that lesson a couple of weeks ago. I played in a scrimmage, played with Providence. There was nobody from my team on my team for Providence, and it was a learning experience because now I have to figure out how to communicate with people I do not know.
Different shorthands, because we were talking about code words, right? With your team, a code word is enough for everybody to know what to
exactly. And then there's different things like set blockers, setting up a certain way.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of going out there blind and trying to learn. The second half I felt was way better than the first, because the first half was we're all learning.
The learning curve.
It was
yeah.
a learning curve, but yeah, you can't have one good person. It does nothing for you. Everybody has to be effective.
You guys had one jammer whose derby name was Pez something.
Pez dispense her.
Okay, Pez dispense her.
Yes, Pez.
Who, to my untrained eye, seemed like a very talented skater.
She is a very talented skater. She's been in derby for well over 10 years.
Yeah. But without you guys doing the blocking, that only gets you so far.
Yeah.
And so that I got to watch that. So in addition to the teamwork, though, and the communication skills, there's a wide range of bodies.
There are so many bodies. You just found that out with how many different bodies are out there.
Here at practice. It is remarkable because pretty much any other sport I can think of, there's a certain type.
They're all carbon copies.
Yeah. Basketball players all look the same.
Gymnasts.
Oh my God, yeah, right.
You're just trying to get that little bit of edge over the other person because you all have the same body type. For derby, it's like a mixed bag, because not every team that you face is going to be the same, because everybody's bodies are going to be different. Body type is only one piece of the puzzle. You can have a bigger skater and be very stable.
Right.
But you can also have a bigger skater and not be very stable. Sometimes we get put into a box in the derby world where they see a big skater and they say, you are going to be a blocker because you have a big booty and you're going to stop people from coming.
Right.
But there are some really effective, bigger jammers.
So stability is just as important.
Is just as important. Being able to know how to balance your body is incredibly important. And there's tiny people who you would think would be jammers who are amazing blockers. It's basically, it doesn't really matter what your body type is. It's how effective you can be with that body. But you can be a big girl and play this sport. You can be a tiny girl and play this sport. You can be super tall. You can be super short. There's no, it's your body you use as a strategy. It's part of the strategy in derby.
It's what you can do with that body rather than what you look like, and that is counter to 95% of the messages girls, women get in this society. Is you're judged on what you look like, and this flips that script.
It does, and I think that's why a lot of people find comfort here.
That is one of the reasons I think that derby has always been a haven for queer people. Yes, absolutely. Tell me about that. She said coyly.
I will preface this by saying that just like every sport Derby is not a utopia. We are miles ahead of a lot of other sports when it comes to the inclusiveness that we are, but we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a village to make sure that we have good allyship and people speaking up for other people. But in my experience, this is the best sport any queer person can like.
No, not to pry, but we've already talked about you identify as non-binary.
I do identify as non-binary.
Tell me a little bit about that, and as it relates to your experience with this Derby thing.
I came out as non-binary while I was in Derby because I found it was a safe place to come out as. I come from a very like progressive family, so that's always been comfortable, but it's been something that I found while in roller derby. And it's just, I feel like people think of non-binary in totally different ways. Like it's such a confusing thing because one person, if you explain how you perceive non-binary to one person, and they can go to another non-binary person, and that person will have a completely different take on being non-binary. For me, I'm just like, I am what I am, and I'm not really a gender.
Do you use they, them? Or
I do. I prefer they, them, but if somebody calls me she or he or whatever, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm not going to correct them, but I tell people, if you fancy, you will call me with they, them. If not, that's fine too. But if you fancy.
Well, in doing some research, Derby I found initiated in the 30s.
Yes, the 20s and 30s. We actually did an entire episode on our podcast.
Oh, did you? About
we
history?
We did about the history. You have to go listen to it.
All right, I will.
Yeah, that one's called Professor Slice.
Reveals all.
But yeah, when Derby started, it was like a Derby race. It was like there was women who did one round, and there was men who did one round. And it was kind of a way to make money during the Great Depression. People would come and watch people skate in a circle for hours upon hours upon hours, and I don't understand how that was entertaining. And then it grew in popularity because it was so cheap for people to watch, and it lasted for hours, like insane amount of hours that people would be going in circles.
So it was just an endurance sport?
Yeah, because what it was like women would skate for a certain amount of time, and then they would switch off with the men. And then they realized that hitting people sold a lot of tickets, and then that's where it started becoming popular. You could elbow Susan, and she would take a fall, and people would be like, yeah! Yep, and it got really, really popular, and then in the height of its popularity, it kind of died.
But it died out in the mid-'70s. We had an oil crisis. And he claimed that the cost of heating the arenas and travel
and the
for the teams,
because they had to. I read that theory too, that they had to they had to take the tracks with them because they were all banked tracks that they could set up. Whereas we play flat track. I really truly mean it when I say that allyship within Derby is really, really important, and I want people and anybody who listens to your podcast who might be genderqueer to know that if you do skate Derby and you don't feel comfortable in your league, please, reach out to people and find allyship, because we are here. There is a lot of allyship in Derby, and unfortunately we are all part of the human condition. And some of us are assholes. When me and Carnage started our podcast.
Well, I'm sorry. What was the name of that podcast?
Coming hot into the box with Slice and Carnage, a roller derby podcast. Our main goal is to make sure we grow the sport and also encourage positivity and kindness. And especially when sometimes it's not there for some people. But if you are genderqueer and you're looking for a sport, this is one of the best places to go.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. Love you.
Of course, love you. I'll go get you a person.
Introduce yourself, if you would.
My name is Misidentified.
Misidentified.
Yes.
So how long into the process do you have to get before you're allowed to earn a Derby name?
Well, for my last league, it was after you pass level 2.
Oh, okay.
So there's level 1, 2, and then 3.
And is 3 the point at which you're cleared to compete? Or
3, you could try out for a team.
when did you start
I
getting into
started
derby?
in 2012, and I didn't even know how to skate.
Really?
Really.
So what drew you to this sport then?
Well, there was somebody I know that was doing open recruitment, trying to get people to join, and I said to my friend as a joke, let's go try out. And we did, and I was holding a wall the whole night. In fact, I had bruises all the way down for months.
Well, why did you keep coming back if you're
Well,
walking
I
away
questioned that
bruised?
myself because at one point I said this is not fun, and I didn't want to do it anymore. But I let like a month go by, and then they asked if I was coming back, and my friend decided not to come back, but I decided to give it a shot. Actually, I was planning to be an NSO,
Which is
It's
a
a non-skating official. Yeah.
Okay.
because at the time, 2012, there weren't very many transgender skaters. In fact, I don't know if there were any in Connecticut. I don't really know. So I signed up, checkbox female or male.
Yep.
Checked off female because there was no other option.
Right.
I figured I couldn't actually play being transgender. Well, the league president actually changed the bylaws to include transgender skaters, which was huge. I switched from NSO track to skater track.
Tell me about you identify as transgender.
I do.
Tell me a little bit about that. Your journey as compared to your journey with derby.
Well, I came out, actually, I was married for like 26 years. I had a child. I had a 12-year-old son, and I came out probably 2008, 2007. Came out. I was going through a divorce, so I wasn't allowed to disclose to my son that I was trans, which was hard. I had to do like I go to work as a male, go see him as a male, and then I go out at night as female. And
How old was he at the time?
12. And they actually made me wait until he was 18, so I had to wait like almost 6 years living that life. Yeah, it was pretty tough. And I was living with my mom. She was cool about me being trans, but she didn't want to see what I looked like. So when I would go out with my friends at night, I'd yell down, "Hey, Mom, I'm going out." "Okay, I'll go into the back room." Yeah.
But that's doing her best. Now I assume
Yeah,
that she's come along in the years
can't,
since.
yeah, she's great. Yeah, she just passed away this year, but she.
I'm so sorry.
She was really supportive, as much as a mom can be. I wish she was a little bit more supportive, but she was good.
What brought you to that point of realizing I need to do something about this?
Well, I actually didn't even know. I mean, I knew there was something wrong with me. There was something different, and there was no word for it at the time. Back in 2007, I started to go to counseling, and my counselor said after a couple of meetings, says, "Hey, you're transgender," and I was like, "Oh shit."
Wow.
Yeah, I was really scared.
So your therapist gave you the vocab to.
Yes.
Wow.
And gave me a word to identify what I was feeling. And
I'm guessing that must have been empowering.
it was empowering and also frightening because
Sure.
because I wasn't out to my wife yet, so we had to go through that. I wasn't out to my family. In fact, my wife at the time, when we did tell her, she didn't believe it. So we were making it up so I would get divorced. And then she started to threaten me, like, "I'm going to tell your family. I'm going to tell people at work. I'm going to put flyers in the front door when people will see when you come in." So it was a pretty tough time. So I ended up moving in with my mom. I had a house, so they stayed at my house, and I lived with my mom. Paid the mortgage so my son didn't want him to have to go back and forth between parents. So it was a tough 6 years. Yeah, that's it. But I made it through. Here I am.
And I assume that being able to be a part of derby helped in that process. Yeah.
Derby was empowering for me to do something as a female and to have an environment where, I mean, it's a lot more accepting now than it was in 2012. I had a lot of issues. Starting off, people misgendering. That's where I got my name, misidentified.
Misidentified.
Yeah, people would always call me he and him, and it bothered me. So when we did go to pick out derby names, someone had said the night before, "I'm sorry, I misgendered you." And I was thinking, oh, that's an interesting name. How about misidentified?
Misidentified.
Yeah.
At the time that you came out, there were, or at the time you got into Derby, rather, that you didn't know any other trans people.
Yes, so at the time I was still legally a male. My driver's license was male. So it wasn't until like 2013 I actually legally changed my name and my gender marker. And then I came out at work in 2014, so I did a couple of years that I was legally male, but identified as female. So Derby was hard. I mean, people would misgender me at practice. I had, actually one time they had a new group of skaters come in, like we have here, and someone said, hey, you're misidentified, I've heard of you. And I'm like, yeah, nice to meet you. And she says, well, why do you get to skate in women's roller derby?
What did you say?
I was shocked. I said, well, because I'm a female. Yeah, so that was really shocking. Another time I was actually playing in about halftime. I went in to use the bathroom. One of my teammates asked me a question, and I answered, and she left. And then somebody from the other team, like their fans, said, she goes, oh, I didn't know this facility let transsexuals in the women's bathroom. And I'm like in tears, and I have to go out and play the second half.
Right, you're trying to get your game face on.
Yeah, so I've had a few of those kind of experiences, especially like when we had to do volunteer work. We did this thing at the Science Center. I remember one time I'm handing out flyers with my teammates, and this woman came up, and I said, hey, come see us play tomorrow night. And she says, well, I want to go see women play. Which, it was deflating for me.
Right.
But like the people that were with me didn't support me, or maybe they didn't hear me. I'm like giving the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't hear what was going on.
But I'm assuming that the presence for trans and non-binary people in Derby and on your team in particular has grown since then.
It's grown over the years. Yeah. In fact, I was a weekend before this. I played in 2 bouts, and I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of trans female skaters.
Wow.
Which was shocking to me. There's like from all these different leagues. And I actually had a fan come up to me one time after a bout and said, hey, can I have your autograph? And I'm like, yeah. She says, wow, I didn't know that we could do this.
Thank you so much for talking
nice
to me.
You.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Maybe we should do the extra challenge of having a conversation while you have your mouthpiece in. We'll see how good you are.
Probably better than me.
Misgendering folks ain't very cowboy, says the t-shirt. Yes. I love it.
Thank you. I thought you would, so I thought today would be a good day to wear it. I'm Barry I'm Alive, or Barry, or Grandpa Barry.
Oh, okay. Now, see, on the previous podcast, they referenced Grandpa Barry several times.
Yes.
But I didn't realize Barry I'm Alive.
Yes.
Oh.
And I use they, them pronouns.
How well respected is that? On your team, in Derby overall, do you find people supportive?
Yeah, so I am still very new to like the Derby community at large. I just celebrated like a year with the league.
Congratulations.
So thank you. But Derby has been incredibly accepting. This was actually the first place where I like walked in the first night and I was like, this is my name and these are my pronouns. And I get very anxious telling people my pronouns and coming out to people. And so like that was big. And then sometimes people mess up, and that's fine.
Sure.
That's fine. But like my other teammates will correct them gently. So it's not always on me. And so it's given me the confidence to correct others. Because I'm like, well, if Grace can do it for me, then I can do it for me.
Talk to me a little bit about that discomfort.
It's a twofold thing for me, at least. Part of it is you never know how someone's going to react. So you could be like, I use they, them pronouns, and then they could react in a way that is unsafe for me.
Right.
Or sometimes it's just a lot of energy to be like, this is who I am, and who I am is different. Right. And then I don't always have the energy to correct, like to explain, like answer questions. Well, this is why I use they, them pronouns. Well, this is who I am. Like, I don't always have the energy to present a thesis on my identity.
And that's exhausting to feel like you have to justify yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
And then
I just want to get a Slurpee. That's all I want. That's it. I want a Slurpee. Leave me alone.
Yeah. And then the other part of it for me is, so like my whole life in a variety of different aspects has just been like the world telling me I'm not enough. And so one of the other parts that I get really anxious about is I don't present particularly androgynous. I don't have a super androgynous, like if you hear my voice, you're like, oh, this is a woman.
Okay.
Which isn't the case, but it's a fair assumption that people make. I'm always afraid of like, am I non-binary enough to be worth taking up the space that I am taking up?
I don't know of any marginalized community where that's not the case, though. There are, an infinite number of books on, am I black enough? Are you lesbian? Are you gay enough? That is a really common reaction.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear you say that.
Yeah.
So what is, in your perception, what is that standard? What is non-binary enough?
See, that's every time I bring this up with my partner, he asks me that question because I'll say, I'm not this enough. And he's like, well, what is enough? And I'm like, well, for literally anyone else on the planet, it's like just showing up is enough. Like, just showing up is enough for literally everyone else.
You walked into the roller
right.
rink, you announced your name and your pronouns.
And like, that's great. Yeah. There is no like quantifiable enough. Like you just are. Like no one can be enough because that's not how people work. Like you by existing is wonderful. That is the space that you are worth taking up, is the space that you do take up.
And frankly, not only that is enough, but that is hard enough.
Yes.
Just being and doing the things that you need to do to get through the week, that's hard enough for most of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Gay, straight, cis, trans, whatever it is you are.
The world is hard.
Yeah.
It's tough.
To whatever extent you're comfortable, tell me a little bit about your journey to this awareness that you're non-binary.
Yeah.
I'm just going to generalize that you seem a lot younger than some of the people sitting at this table.
I am.
Okay.
I'm one of the youngest people in the league.
Are you really?
I am.
Oh, cool.
So for about my first 6 months of being in the league, I was the youngest person. So I just like show up and had.
Do you get a special patch? Or?
My special patch is having like 40 new moms. So, which is great. So I think it really started, I had a friend in high school and they came out to me as being non-binary. I think technically they're gender fluid is how they would identify. But they introduced that idea of like, you don't have to be cis or trans. Because like I was aware that trans people existed. And I was like, that's fine, but that's not me. And so I was like, well, if I'm not that, then I just guess I'm the default. And then my friend told me how they perceived themselves. And I was like, oh, that kind of rang a bell. And then I tried to tell someone, and I don't think I worded it very well. Okay. And they were just like, everyone feels like that. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, all right, guess that's not it. We'll continue along doing whatever it is I'm doing. And growing up, if you had to, like, if you took a picture of me now and showed what I look like now to like literally anyone when I was a kid, they would be like, this is not the same person.
Oh,
I
really?
was incredibly, like, I'm not the most androgynous person, but I was a very feminine child.
Okay.
And I think part of it was performative. I was like, okay, well, I have to be.
These are the things I have to do.
Right.
It's what's expected of me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so going through college, like my first 2 years of college, I was still very much like I wore heels to class every day. I went to school at Mary Baldwin University, which is on a hill. You cannot get anywhere without going up a set of stairs. The dedication.
Wow. I am bowing.
Do not recommend.
Which probably put you in good stead for this sport, though.
Yeah. Okay. I know how to be unsteady on my feet. That's fine. And then we had like, so Mary Baldwin is a historic women's college, and traditionally was very conservative. In like the 90s, it like flipped, and so now like everyone who goes there is queer. It's amazing. We have like 3 Pride Weeks a year. It's delightful. And during one of these Pride Weeks, they were having like different events and like different pronoun pins and things like that. And I don't know what clicked, but I was just like, I saw a they them pin and I was like, that's it, that's me, and I just bought it.
Wow.
And then I told no one, and I just put it on my backpack and waited for someone to notice.
But that sense of, yep, that's me.
It. And now
it's amazing how words, I think I already used empowering, but that's the sense of it, is like, oh, okay, so now I can go out into the world and get information about this.
Yes.
And with the same sort of approach of, well, let's see what fits my experience and what doesn't.
Yep. And go forward and figure out like who I am with no expectations of being a person for the sake of someone else, which is something I'm still working on, admittedly, but it's something I've gotten better at, is just being me for me.
Tell me about being binary in the Derby world. With your whole year of experience.
With my whole year of experience, it's been very delightful in that it is the first community that's just like taken me for who I am and not made me defend it for anyone. I had a really lovely experience. One of our team members, Elena's more upset. She has a child, and her child is non-binary. And at one of the first, her child had like recently come out to her, and at like one of the first events that we had where I was officially part of the league, she very excitedly skated over to me with her child and was like, "This is my child. They use they, them pronouns," and they were so excited to meet an adult who was non-binary. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is who I am, and this is who I can be, and I'm being acknowledged in a way that I am helping other people by being authentic to who I am." And it was a really empowering experience.
All sorts of diverse people can come in and look and say, I don't know if I could do the skating thing, but I could belong here.
Yeah.
I could do that.
And you can absolutely do the skating thing. I had no skating experience, like never put a pair of skates on in my life before I showed up to my first recruitment night.
Okay, now this I've heard this twice now tonight, and this is just mind-boggling to me.
I bought padding, not quite this bulky, but I had padding, I had a helmet. And I bought a pair of skates, but I like having teachers. And so I was like, I really want to learn how to skate, but I don't feel comfortable self-teaching. And my partner, he was working at Electric Boat at the time, and someone, I guess on the league, posted something to a forum, and he was just like, "Oh, look, roller derby, you should go." Neither of us had any idea what roller derby was.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, it was like, "No experience required, you should go." And I showed up.
You fit the bill. You had zero
experience.
Okay.
Yes. Then I was here for like a month, and they were doing a scrimmage, and I was like, "Oh, that's scary." And someone looked at me and they're like, "Do you know what roller derby is?" I was like, "No." And they're like, "Here are some videos you should watch." Like, you need to know what you're getting into.
But then the thing is, you watch that, and instead of what many of my listeners might consider the sane response, which would be, "I'm going home on the couch with a book and a cup of tea," you came back.
Yes, because I am stubborn. I said I signed up. I'm going to see it through. So.
Excellent.
As one of my professors said when I told him that I was doing roller derby, because I'm playing in my first scrimmage in a couple weeks, which I'm very excited about. And I was like, thank you. I was like, "You should come watch my team skate, because I'll be skating." And he was like, "Great, I'll see if I can make it. What blood type are you?"
Grandpa Barry, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was delightful.
Tell me your derby name. Tell me your real name. Tell me anything you want.
So I'm Dahlia Dynamite. I've been with this league since about 2017. Right now, I'm our primary freshies coach.
Oh.
This is actually my first practice with the Krakens in a while.
Okay.
So I'm a tiny bit rusty, but I think I did it right.
I didn't hear any screams.
No, there are no screams.
Okay.
Well, maybe good screams.
There's no screaming in derby.
There's no crying in derby.
Oh, right, okay.
Screaming's fine, especially if it intimidates your enemies. We're not opposed to chemical warfare, too. If we're real stinky, we use that to our advantage.
Good one. Well, as soon as you broke out, they handed out the pads for me to get out there.
Yep.
I was reminded of how appalling my daughter's shin pads were when she played soccer.
Oh, the stink is real.
It is beyond belief.
Yeah. You start at like the Fritos, and then when it gets real bad, it's like a little bit of like trash compactor stink.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when they need to.
At the bottom of the. Yeah.
Oh, the water at the bottom of the sink when you don't do the dishes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, God. That's when you need to soak them in the tub for like 2 days.
So I'm assuming that to get to the coaching level, there's a lot of years of playing. as well? Or
Really, anyone that's gone through the fresh meat is perfectly capable of training them
Okay.
because, and especially those that have been closer to it, they kind of understand some of the struggles. But yeah, I mean, having, that full skating experience definitely does help. So you can kind of not just explain the how to do something, but the why. That's what I really like to do with my coaching. That's kind of my style because I've got that perspective from bouting. So I can be like, okay, this is why we do transitions. It's not just to torture you, but it's so, we can turn quickly in a 3-wall or something like that when we're on the track. So it can help kind of click the importance of it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I think they appreciate that.
because that's something that it's struck me. It seems like there are a lot of skills that you would practice in isolation, but then you've got to pull them all together.
Yeah, and we break it down into the most basic levels. We don't just say, okay, we're going to do transitions. We start with, I need you to be able to balance on one foot. I need you to be able to balance on one foot while gliding. We need to learn how to skate backwards. And then we're going to put all those steps together, put that whole piece of the puzzle together, and then turn that into transitions. So that's why I'll explain the importance of, they'll be like, well, why do we have to balance on one foot? Here's why. Because we're going to need to balance on one foot for at least a second or two when we're turning around doing transitions. And then it kind of starts to click a little bit more. And it's so satisfying. It's so satisfying going from those very basic steps and watching them, the gears turning and then putting it all together. It's so great in general just watching these guys grow from day one. They're doing awesome.
So with folks that have been over here before, we've been talking about sort of the intersection of derby life and queer life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Shoot.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
About me personally, or?
Sure. Both you personally and your experience with league play, whatever.
Well, coming into Derby, I was just introduced to this whole beautiful world of just queer people, just different gender identities, different sexual preferences, that sort of thing, that I wasn't really exposed to before. And it's just been wonderful. I just feel welcome and at home, myself being bisexual and not really ever embracing that before when I was younger. I mean, I always knew it was there, but I really feel like I've come into myself now joining this league. I feel like I can be totally myself, out and open around this group of people. They're like a second family to me. I came out officially as bi after I joined Derby because I finally felt comfortable to it. It finally made sense to me. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, and I mean, I hear stories of a lot of people like that, that can finally come out and fully be themselves because of Derby.
Because they felt, I'm in a safe place.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the beauty of that, it seems to me, is that it's a safe place, but it's not grounded on being queer. You've got a job to do.
Well, that all is relevant in a way because it just kind of, the physical toughness kind of translates into a mental toughness as well. Derby teaches us to own our space. Be brave, and it's increased my confidence in the real world. I'm way more outspoken than I used to be, and I'm way more confident in myself in general.
Just the way you carry yourself.
Just the way I carry myself. I'm more of a leader. I'm better at, speaking, public speaking, communicating because of being a coach. That all translates into real life and just, being, out there and comfortable with who I am. And not really giving a crap what anyone thinks. I love Derby. It saved my soul. A lot of people say that Derby saved my soul, and it's so true.
Wow.
It's not just getting on a track and hitting people. You learn so much about yourself.
As if getting on a track and hitting people weren't enough.
Right?
Yeah. There are even more benefits. So when did you come to Derby? How long have you been?
2017, January of 2017. We started at a roller rink in Groton, Galaxy. That was our home base, and that's since been shut down and bulldozed. And then, we found this place, our skate-in, that we're at on Tuesdays, and then we're in Groton, Avery Point, Yukon Avery Point on Sundays. Yeah.
That is a gorgeous facility.
Yeah, it's really nice.
You've got the glass looking.
Oh yeah, we're so lucky to have the places that we do have. Honestly, there's so many leagues that really are struggling to keep any sort of practice space or any sort of home right now. So certainly I count our blessings for sure.
Cool. One of your teammates from before was telling me about how this league, or I guess in Derby in general, seems really willing to adapt to gender identities, sexual preferences, and in the way that a lot of other professional sports are not.
Right, and that's the so special about Derby. Like, again, going back to like having that safe space. Some of the people that we have, or just that we have in Derby in general, may not feel welcome in any other sport. So this is a wonderful outlet, a fun way of exercise and finding community as someone that isn't necessarily part of the mainstream, so to speak. That's what it's all about.
What's the message to those who are listening to this episode and thinking, maybe I could do that?
The answer is you can. And, well, you don't really know until you try, honestly. I would encourage anyone to try. And age isn't necessarily a limitation either. We've got our oldest skater, 66 years old, and she's still kicking ass. She kicks my ass. She can hit. So, honestly, you don't know until you try, just find a league, contact them. And see when their freshie classes, and just give it a shot. It can't hurt to try. Because I've had some people come in, they're really nervous. I'm not sure if I can do this, and now they're on the team. So yeah, heck yeah.
Do it, guys.
Do it.
Do it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So my name is Gin and Demonic, and I've been skating.
Gin and Demonic.
Gin and Demonic. I do like gin and tonics, and I wanted to put a little twist on it.
The Derby name thing I love.
It's really fun. Picking out your name is a blast.
I've got to imagine it is not, hey, Carnage is joining
coming
us.
in here? Come sit with me.
Because we're running out of time. Hey, hi.
Hi, buddy. You're
I'm gonna
sweaty.
get sweaty all over you.
I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but I had been thinking, because in my head I was like, what would your Derby name be if you did this? And it is not unlike drag.
It's not.
In
Right.
that
Yeah.
not at all.
You pick a name,
Yeah.
but it's gotta both represent you and the performance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's this is the kind of player I am. This is the kind of
Yeah,
person
it
I
can
am.
be kind of inspirational.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was more of the performance, not so much my personality.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. Like, it had to be part of me, but also, like, it was my alter ego.
Oh, okay.
It's my alter ego.
So maybe drag isn't maybe it's a superhero thing.
Yeah, kind of a superhero thing, yeah.
Okay.
It's like the person I put on when I come out.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think is a lot like drag.
Yeah.
Like,
And it is and it's also me. Like, if you see me on the street, I don't act too different. A little more low-key, a little bit more businessy, but.
yeah, same. But I think in my early days of Derby, I was filled with a lot more rage. Yeah, it's like I'm gonna get hurt. Well, yeah.
Well, Gin, let me just have you. Is it Gin and Demonica?
Yeah, you just call me Gin.
Gin. Okay.
Gin.
All right.
For the longest time, my kid did junior derby for a while, and some of the parents thought my name was Jen because all of the coaches called me Gin. And I was like, no, that's not my regular. My regular name's Alexa. I'm like, I'm
Which
none of
seems,
those things.
it sounds so weird.
It is. It was like, I met Oakley here, and I had never skated with her before, and I have no idea what her real name is.
It's Brienne.
It is?
I'm just noticing that you have lime slices.
Oh,
on
yeah,
your,
my lime
so you're
slices
for
are-
the
I'm very proud of those.
in a demonic horn
Sort of way.
configuration. So tell me how you got involved with Derby.
Sure. So I've been skating with Shoreline since 2016, and there was a janitor at a job I worked at, and his girlfriend did it, and he told me about it. I was like, that sounds so cool. You'll have to tell me like when they're recruiting, and then he brought me a flyer, And every single day for 2 weeks before recruitment, he said, "Are you going to recruitment? Did you get your mouth guard yet?" This is the day. And I don't know if I would have. Like, I was an artsy, creative kid when I was younger. I never did any sports. This is not something that I ever would have seen myself doing. But I was like, that sounds cool. And at the time, my kids were young. They were like 5 and 3, and I worked full time. And I desperately needed space in my life for me, like as a person that wasn't a mother or an employer or a wife. And Derby really gave me that. Like, it just gave me a space to be myself and have like grown-up friends who do fun things and challenge myself. And
Had you had any skating experience when you walked in?
when I was 8 years old, I really loved to roller skate. And I remember when I was 9 years old, I got a pair of unicorn roller skates. And I lived in California, so sidewalk skating was a big thing.
Yeah.
But then we moved, and then there was no place to skate in New Hampshire. And
Do they still have unicorn skates that you
For
could-
Derby?
If one way out.
I suppose you could get custom ones
There you
that
go.
had unicorns, but not
With
not
cool,
your.
with cool little horns in the front.
No.
So that you could stab.
oh, that would be fun. That's
Yeah.
creative.
So okay.
It's
so
frowned
stab-
upon.
Yeah. Well, no, because when I was on Coming Hot Into the Box, I suggested in one scenario that you put forward that clotheslining someone would be the best option, and I was told no, that's not.
You
Yeah.
get in
That's
trouble
not
for
cool.
get in
that.
trouble
But
for
so
that.
clotheslining and stabbing.
Yeah,
are
I would
both-
say that's probably against the rules. Yeah.
Derby has too many rules for me.
It's a lot of
I
rules.
can't keep track of it all.
I think that every time I'm in the box, I'm like, man,
It's-
another rule.
Well, that was
Calm me down.
Watching people in and out of the penalty box, I had no idea why they were there.
Yeah.
I was-
Sometimes we don't know why we're there.
I just kind of accepted it after a while. Nobody seemed very upset about going into the penalty
No.
box.
No, a lot of times people are like, okay, I get a break.
Yeah.
a 30-second
Or you're like,
break.
God, I did do that, didn't I?
Yeah. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I know why I'm
sorry.
getting called on that.
And there are a lot of times when, like, I'll see somebody go to the box, and I'm like, yeah, sorry. Like, they'll throw their hands up, like, yeah, that was
Yeah,
me.
I did
And then
that.
I'll be
It's
like,
And the thing is, too, like in some sports, you can feel that penalties are malicious. But for the most part, when people are out there playing roller derby, like you're just bodies on a wheel and you're doing your best to follow all the rules and hit with the right body parts. But, you know, sometimes you just get a
Yeah.
little out of whack.
yeah.
Well, chaos is the word that keeps coming up. Is that
Yeah.
you drill with these skills, you improve to a point where you're in, I guess, is it level 3? Is that what
Yep.
Where you can compete. But the words that you guys keep using is that is once you're out there and about, it's how well do you react in chaos?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's time, too, because, like, when we're all first baby contact skaters, our derby brains have not grown yet.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you are like, I don't know what's going on. Somebody help me. Like, you get a little buddy that you stay out with there who tells you what to do in the beginning. And then slowly, the more and more you play, because it's funny, you work so hard to level up and to get to the point where you actually start scrimmaging. And then when you can start using contact and hitting people, it feels like a whole new game. It feels like something completely different than everything you train for because it is so chaotic and your brain hasn't caught up to like what the rules are or what
Yeah.
people are doing or where am I.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll find like when you watch like high level derby, like you can tell that there's so much time and effort and just experience that go into that high level play because they've broken down the chaos.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not. It sounds like it's not unlike military training.
Sure.
Where you're going to do these oversimplified, awful things over and over and over again until you don't think about it anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
So that when we put you in the chaos, you will react the correct way.
And I think what also comes is that when you have a team that, you know, has skated together for a while, like a couple of seasons, you know, like I know that Jen is going to be that person that I look for to kind of get me through on the inside line. And, you know, maybe Slice is a person that I can kind of hide behind and she'll like plow through somebody to get me through a pack. Like you'll learn the strengths of your teammates to take advantage of what's going on the track. But that's not something that you can just know. That's the experience, that's the time, and because it's like something that Slice and I have really developed or like really started, like the big point that we've learned since we've started the podcast is that like one person can't win a derby game. It doesn't matter. Like, you could be the best skater in the damn world, but like, you need your team. You need your team to get you through.
There's so many moving parts to...
There are. So and I think that's what really strengthens that sense of community, because you know you need to rely on at least 4 other people to get you to the end.
In the bout I saw, you guys came out really strong, and bing, 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 you were racking things up. But then they got in a jam where it was 12 or 14 points.
Yeah, and they talk about, a lot of derby players talk about jamnesia. You have a bout, or you have a jam, and whether it went great or it went terribly, you have to just forget about. You have to play for the jam that you're in.
In the moment.
Because you could have had a terrible jam if for several reasons that are completely in your control or out of your control, but you just have to. As soon as you have the track, you just have to forget about it, because the next time is going to be different. You might go up against completely different players. You might have different people in your pack. So it's really that flexibility, and it's a lot of life lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you have to learn to work with other people. You have to learn to use their strengths, and you have to be an open communicator. If you're not a communicator, derby doesn't work. And I don't know if somebody else has said this too, but it also really taught me how to take up space and how to own my space.
Yeah.
Like, I have I'm much more likely to stand up for myself and for the people around me, because I've learned that, like, one of the first things you do when you start learning how to play contact is like learning how to hit people and take their space, and you're literally saying, this is my space, or stopping someone, like absorbing their energy and not moving, because you're not letting them take your space. So that made a profound difference, I think, in just how I live my life.
That is a huge life lesson.
Yeah.
Carnage, I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if you get a chance to look at, but after I was on the podcast, I got an email from somebody. I don't know if it's somebody on your team or somebody in the league, but they sent me a Reddit thread, which they had started about, and this was a trans woman who would prefer to live stealth. They were saying that their experience of derby, while overall pretty good, was getting very frustrating, because they were kind of being held, if and when people found out they were trans, they were being held to a double standard. Where, for a trans femme person, where you either need to be sheepier than the sheep, so that you are sort of being non-threatening to anybody, or you were being watched extra carefully, and things that cisgender skaters would not get called for were being perceived as too aggressive. You're a wolf in sheep's clothing. It was a very long post.
It was,
heartfelt.
Yeah, of course.
And then I was reading through the comments, and there were a lot of people supporting that trans women were kind of being held to a different standard.
So I would like to think that now, and I would certainly say since COVID, or since I started with Shoreline, that I look at the person. And really, since coaching and since becoming a coach, I look at all my skaters as individuals with what they can individually bring to the team. And I really try my best to treat everybody the same, because I would want everybody to feel like they're all on an equal playing ground. And I will admit that when I very first started playing roller derby, trans people had joined that league, and this was back in like 2012. Okay. So it was I will admit that I have done a lot of growing. And I've done a lot of learning.
Well, you had mentioned rage before. Coming at it, and if we were to be on the same skating skill level, rage from a cisgender woman, or what comes across as, let's say, aggressiveness. Aggressive play comes across differently for a cis woman, as opposed to if I, particularly as a trans woman who doesn't pass, it gets interpreted as the opposite of what you were saying. You're taking up our space. You're being masculine.
I can understand that for sure.
Masculine in a space that's supposed to be women.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't have to fight a stigma.
Yeah.
You
No,
know, I
exactly.
don't have to. I have that privilege, I guess, if that's the
Yeah.
word to use. I don't have to. It's not something I have to worry about, and I'm so grateful that I don't. But I think that's also made me more aware of now that I have become friends with people of all over the spectrum of gender and sexuality, and myself 10 years ago is not the self I am now, as far as awareness and kindness, and being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. I actively try to be more gender neutral with the words that I'm saying, instead of being like, all right, ladies. I will try to be like, all right, skaters.
Right.
But that's hard, because my whole life it's been, all right, ladies, let's do this thing. But not everybody identifies as a lady.
Right.
So I need to learn to be better.
In masculine-oriented sports, that gets used a lot as a way to break down, okay, ladies.
All right, lady. Yeah.
Let's get out in the field there, ladies.
Right.
And I'd say too, like, I think it sounds, I don't know if I've read that particular Reddit thread, but I've seen some of the conversations on Facebook. It sounds like they're talking a little bit about reffing too. So in games, they're being called on things that other people aren't being called.
Yeah.
And I think that there's bigotry out there probably in every sport. I haven't seen too much of that around here in my experience, but I don't doubt that it exists.
And we're looking at it from a lens of cisgendered women.
Yeah, exactly.
So, a transgender woman might definitely see things differently than I do.
Yeah, different lived experiences.
And I would hope that I've created a comfortable and safe enough space for my skaters that if I had said something that made somebody uncomfortable or treated a particular skater in a way that made them feel like I othered them, that they would they'd be like, hey, Carnage, when we were doing this drill, like, I felt like you really were pointing me out. I hope that I've created an environment where people can approach me and be like, yeah, that was kind of shitty.
Yeah, right.
Also approach you as an ally. And say,
Yeah.
hey, I really think this ref is making bad calls on me because
Correct.
of what they look like. And then you would advocate for them. Like,
Absolutely.
I absolutely feel like, well, I mean, I can't speak for anyone, but I know I would feel comfortable, and I imagine many of our other skating friends would feel comfortable coming to you.
There's that stereotypical confrontation between a coach and a ref, where you're getting in each other's faces, and is that relationship more open to?
I would say so, because it is, first of all, it's a recreational sport.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's getting paid to do this,
Right.
But
bringing
if
home
like
trophies.
somebody's being kind of douchey, I'm just gonna be like, hey, so like, what's the deal, man? Like, and I want to approach something from like, hey, maybe you're having a bad day, or maybe you're just not seeing things,
Maybe
but like,
you're not
maybe you're not aware
this.
of it.
Yeah.
But like, you are seriously calling this particular skater on a lot of these particular things, and why? Yeah, I do feel like with the sport of roller derby, we are not perfect. We still have a lot of learning and growing to do, but we are there to learn and to grow. Like, we're open to that, and I do feel like, and I only have experience from 2011 when I joined, but like, even from then, the awareness and the openness and the acceptance has grown exponentially. And it's like, oh, that person's trans skating. And it's always like, oh, that person's trans. Is that person trans? To now, it's like, I don't even, to me, it's like, oh, okay, hey.
Yeah.
Like,
what
it's-
pronouns should I use?
What are your pronouns? Okay, and but I would ask anybody, like,
Yeah,
Where-
hey,
like,
what are your
meaning,
pronouns?
like, that's just like part of a conversation we have when you meet somebody.
And like, how can I respect you today?
You're light years ahead of other sports in
Yeah.
terms of, well, okay, how could we improve then? And whereas most sports, most organized, and especially professional sports, are so entrenched that it feels like making any kind of change like that would be losing something. Losing an argument.
Yeah.
And so that to me seems really encouraging. That,
Yeah.
Hey, we don't have it all down yet, but we're working on it.
But we're working on it. And like, with our league, we are an all gender league. So if you are.
Doesn't really
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you identify with or who you are, as long as you always follow rule number 1, which is don't be a dick. Don't be a dick.
Rule.
But other than that, it's, come as you are. And you are going to have a strength and you're going to have a weakness. But I as a coach, I'm going to capitalize on what I can. And if I know that, like, hey, this particular skater is a super strong blocker, then I'm going to put them in this kind of pack with it. But I don't look at their gender.
Yeah.
I look at, like, oh, this person really is having an off day today. And I think I need to switch some things around and put this person. Like, I don't look at it and go, well, that trans skater isn't having a good day. It's like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, this person is...
It's my pivot. It's not...
It's my pivot. My pivot's not doing so great. My jammer is really struggling today.
I'm wondering if maybe there's a way to make the country accept that rule number 1 is don't be a dick.
Yeah, I mean, hell yeah. I mean, gosh, if we could even remotely close to just be kind. Like, how is it, like, I know...
Why is it so hard?
Why is it so hard? Like, and I get, like, my parents' generation, they, them pronouns is like a head scratcher. What do you mean? They, them. I have to, like, just because I'm saying I'm going to a wedding, my mom's like, oh, who is she marrying? Oh, who's the man? It's like, no, she married a chick, Mom. Like, but that's my generation now, that I am going to a wedding. It could be anybody's wedding.
Right.
But I think it's that older generation that I get that, like, but, like, how hard is it if they go by they, them pronouns? Granted, I have definitely misgendered people, but I try to follow my own personal rules and don't apologize, just correct myself.
Excellent.
And just move on
That
and
is the
try
correct.
not to do it again.
Yep.
I will do it again,
Yeah.
but then I correct myself.
Or for some people, when it becomes a regular occurrence, the third step of that, there's acknowledge it, move on. But then if it's chronic, reflect a little.
Yeah, like, why?
Am I getting hung up on that? Practice seems to be over. Everybody's heading out. So thank you both very, very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This was wonderful.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
We
it was
appreciate
lovely
it.
speaking with you.
Yeah.
Derby love to Pumpkin Spice, Misidentified, Grandpa Barry, Dahlia Dynamite, Gin and Demonic, and Carnage. One medical footnote, I did in fact not get a bruise on my butt. I was sore for about a week, and I determined that it was sore by poking it repeatedly with my index finger, which is the extent of my medical know-how. On Friday, November 17th, Sam Avery and I are hosting the first of a series of game nights at the Blue Orchid Pan-Asian Restaurant in New Haven. The gallery opening for Sam's artwork is at 7, and then we'll start gaming at 8, and we will be playing Password. I'll link in the notes to the famous Password episode of The Odd Couple. Everybody's welcome. Why not close out the week with some drinks, some laughs, some incredible food, and some more drinks?
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece.
And you've just been listening to Transqat. It is made by one of my favorite people in the world, Clare McCarthy.
Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC.
Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.
Join us on the web at transqat.com.
That's TRANSQAT.com.
QAT.com.
QAT.com.
There you'll find links to Transqat, the blog,
Writing projects,
speaking engagements,
and our PayPal donations page.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monkeys.
Monies. Your monies.
Your monies. Not monkeys.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monies. Any monkeys will be gratefully received as well.
Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
On TikTok, we are at The Real Transqat.
Want to tell your story on air?
or ask Claire a question.
What is the deal?
She has all the answers.
Or suggest a guest or topic for an upcoming episode.
Use the contact page at the website
or email her directly at crmtranscat@gmail.com.
crmtranscat@gmail.com.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.